What's up everyone, Tom from the Airsoft headquarters here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have an excellent opportunity to look at a newer gas blowback rifle coming from PTS OEM by KWA. Now this is going to be the PTS Radian Model 1, which, if my research has been correct, there has been a pre-production or at least a early release of this several years ago, but hasn't really been available on the market. And based on some of the limited videos that I've been able to find on YouTube, just generally searching for this, there's not a whole lot of information available on these. They were just kind of an overall showcase video from PTS and from Airsoft GI, so I don't think they actually hit the market back then. So now we actually have the final version, the one that is available for everyone to purchase, and then we have a couple here in the store as well for us to sell to players if they are interested in picking one of these for themselves, which I think is an excellent option. Now, what we're going to do is, before we actually get into it and give you the specs right off the bat, is I am going to give a forewarning or a heads up, because I know it's going to come up in some conversation somewhere. I am not sponsored, I'm not endorsed, I'm not being paid by KWA or PTS or anyone in order to make this video. This is a video featuring this product because we at the store here liked it. We thought it was an excellent option, brought it in. We've never had it before, and has some unique and really very pleasantly surprising features that I think will stand out above the rest of the gas blowbacks currently on the market. So that's why I'm making this video, in order to inform you guys as to what those are and give you an overview as to the rifle itself. So as for the rifle itself, I'm going to give you the specs right off the bat. I'm not going to tease it out until the end, so here we go. The overall length of the rifle, as far as the shortest length with the stock all the way in, is a total of 31 inches. With the stock all the way out, it is going to be 34¼ inches, so you have that for your overall length. The weight is going to be 5 pounds 11 ounces. I don't know what that conversion is off the top of my head. I'm sure I'll be nice and give you the conversion somewhere. The inner barrel length is about 14½ inches, starting right at that front upper receiver, and then extruding all the way about halfway through that standard orange tip there for about 368 millimeters of inner barrel length. With the 10 shots that we took with .20s, from the green gas magazine at a 80° Fahrenheit environment, it was an average of 411 feet per second, which on average would not make it playable. In these conditions that I was testing it at, it would not be playable at most fields. Now, if you were to utilize a partially filled magazine, or even play at a slightly cooler environment, maybe 75, 70 degrees, then that gas expansion will be lowered, giving you a lower velocity. Don't have a number for rounds per second because we only play on semi-auto only, so it doesn't really matter to us, so I don't feel inclined to give you that information. This is going to be a licensed Radian rifle system, so it does have some patented products on there, such as the ADAC, which is going to be the Ambi dual action catch, which I will be demonstrating for you, as well as the Talon Ambi safety selector that I'm a little biased on. I think it might be a little bit cooler because I think it's named after this guy right here, in full bias right there. And so that is what we have as far as the general overview information about this rifle specifically. If you would like to get some highlighted overview of the tip to the butt, buckle up, stay tuned. We're going to start, as always, with the box. Now, when it comes to real firearms specifically, the box itself doesn't particularly matter. When it comes to airsoft, airsofters love their boxes, and they want them clean, precise, and really looking sharp. And comparatively to a lot of the other boxes that I normally see here on all my shelving units, this box stands out the most, which is an awesome feature. If this is something that is displayed at a field or at a store, that is displayed out in the open, has the rifle maybe on it if they wanted to showcase it like that behind the counter, This is a box that would absolutely 100% stand out. It has the PTS logo on there. It has the Radian Model 1, which may mean that they could be coming out with multiple models of the Radian rifles if it does catch on well enough. If you guys are not familiar with Radian as a company, they are a real firearm manufacturer, and so this is going to be a collaboration with an airsoft company in order to deliver a one-to-one spec of real firearm for the use of training or for the use and utilization of airsofters to get comfortable and competent with utilizing their airsoft gas blowback action rifle in order to mimic the real rifle as closely as possible. Which, awesome, as a guy that's coming from a background of real firearms, I like that idea a lot, and I wholeheartedly agree with that idea, if that is in fact what they're going for, because it certainly seems like it, you know, based on what I see here thus far. Inside the box is just some foam, plastic bag with a warranty card, and a little instruction manual that says go to the KWA's website for the actual physical instructions, and then a PTS EPM magazine. And that's really it. So now we have the actual rifle itself, hopefully what you guys came for. Starting at the tip, we do have the federally mandated orange tip, which is going to be the older school standard KWA birdcage flash hider. One of the first things that a lot of airsofters change out or remove is going to be that orange flash hider. It's a fairly easy process to remove, first of all, and it's cheap enough and really inexpensive enough that you're not adding any cost to it because it's going to get thrown away right away. So that's on there just because it has to be for the US. Then we have the 14-inch barrel, which is going to be a metal construction and has a imitation gas tube. That is not a real gas tube, it's just an imitation one, so that can be removed if you so want, or if you're going to change the rail out, that can be removed as well. A true free float rail system here, and this is going to be the Radian style specifically. What is unique with the Radian style of rail system is that it does have a lot of weight cut away from it on the 45 sections in order to cut as much weight as possible. Relative to other gas blowback rifles, the overall weight of this rifle, the Radian, was significantly lighter in relation to the LM4 or other gas blowbacks with metal bodies. In fact, when I first picked this one up out of the box, it was so lightweight that I did think it was a polymer construction of receiver because it was so light. However, that is just due to the fact that they took several cuts away from that receiver or from that rail system in order to make it as light as possible. It doesn't do anything as far as structural integrity, as far as possibly making anything weaker or torquing anything out of spec. Everything is still going to be tight and hold up really, really well. The very top section is going to be your standard Picatinny optic mounting systems or PEC mounting systems or laser, flashlight, whatever have you. That is going to be a standard option. On the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock position is going to be a M-LOK style of rail system. Much more companies are going with M-LOK just because there is more favoritism within the real firearm and airsoft market for that rail system specifically. Compared to KeyMod, I have no comments, I have no opinions, but M-LOK does seem to look a little bit more streamlined compared to KeyMod. One of the things that I will note is that on the very bottom of the rail system, you do have the M-LOK moving the entire length to the very bottom part of that rail system, butting up against that upper receiver, versus on the 3 and 9 o'clock positions, that M-LOK rail system is going to stop about 3 inches short of that upper receiver. I don't exactly know why they did that, but that is something to take note of. That way, if anyone wants to put any type of specific vert grip or hand stop system, they have the option to go right up against the receiver. But at that point, if you're putting your grip right up against the receiver, you may as well just grab the receiver as is right there. Speaking of grabbing the receiver, they did cut out, I don't know if it was intentional, I hope it was, but they did cut out the that front of the mag well a little bit shallower. So If you went and utilized it as a grip for the first 2 fingers or even the middle 2 fingers, they do slide in and are sized very well in order to actually get a good grip on the front of that mag well. Very good, awesome build there if that was truly intended. On the receiver, it is going to have the ADAC Ambi dual action catch, which means that everything on this receiver is going to be 100% ambidextrous. Every single thing is ambidextrous. So your magazine release, 100% ambidextrous. Your bolt release, 100% ambidextrous. Your charging handle, ambidextrous. Your selector switch, which is the patented Talon selector switch, ambidextrous. One of the cool notes about that ambi action is that if you were to pull that charging handle back, press in on that magazine release, that is what holds your bolt open if you don't have a magazine inside of that receiver, which is phenomenal because I can't tell you how many times I go to pull the bolt open on my LM4 and I've got to sit there like some chump without my magazine, and I've got to go, oh, hold on, let me get my hand around there, get it back, lock that forward, and then reposition my hands, and now I'm good to do whatever I need to, right? There's that fumbling process where I need to move my hands to multiple positions in order to get that bolt to lock back, because that bolt hold open feature is only available on the left-hand side here, which is not a super great thing, but it is the only option currently with the standard LM4 PTR series. Slide that back there. No longer would that be a problem if anyone wanted to pick this guy up. So having that magazine release as far as your bolt hold open, you do need to be careful to remove your magazine before intending to pull that bolt back in order to retain it open. And then if you want to close it, just move your finger up 5 degrees, maybe less, press down, and there's your bolt release. How fast and how smooth is that? I truly like that. In fact, let me try this. So if I do pull this back, magazine in, nope. There we go. So there's one flaw right there. The Ambi magazine release on the left-hand side of the receiver, that does not open or hold the bolt open. However, if you go up again, put your finger up 5 degrees, maybe less, press down on the lowest part of that bolt release system on the left-hand side there, and that is going to be what your bolt hold open is. And again, just move your finger up even farther, and that is your bolt release. Easy, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. The Radian licensing on the left and, or just the left-hand side. I thought it was on the right-hand side as well. I know it's up on the very top underneath that rear iron sight there, which, speaking of those iron sights, these are going to be the PTS low-profile options that are going to be the flip-up front and rear. These are going to be polymer in construction, so they are going to be a little bit lighter weight. I know a lot of people are going to prefer to either remove them, or if they do keep them, they don't get used very often. They do have full controls as far as windage, elevation, and even have that nifty low profile, or no, wide aperture versus tight aperture for that rear sight. So cool that they have that. The selector switch is going to be very similar to the PTS Badass lever system. So on the left-hand side for right-hand base of shooters, that selector switch is going to be a little bit longer, and these specifically have a little bit more height to them. So they're a little bit beefier, they're a little bit thicker, which for a standard right-hand base of shooter, very easy to get your finger in there, rotate that around, and have full controls. On the left-hand side, it retains the same height, but the length is going to be shortened. However, for anyone that's going to be doing left-hand base of shooting, that's not going to be too bad as far as getting those selector switches to actuate. So very easy to control. While we're over here, we can talk about the selector. It is very, very, very smooth. On selectors, what happens is there is a small spring and then a ball bearing, typically, that is built into the selector switch itself. So this one has a weaker spring, or it's a larger ball bearing, and just in the little bit of use that we have, and if I remember correctly, directly out of the box, it was already buttery smooth as far as transitioning from safe to semi to full auto and back and forth. Just so smooth, and I can appreciate that. Brand new selectors out of the box normally need to get worn in very heavily before they even start to get to how smooth this is directly out of the box. On the very right side of the receiver, you do have your bolt forward assist, which has the Radian logo on there. For gas blowback or AEGs, you don't need your forward assist button, but it is there and it does actuate. So if you really wanted to be super gimmicky and sit there with your bolt partially open and physically press your bolt forward, you can do that. You're gonna look a little weird and people are gonna give you some weird looks, but it works and you can do it. So if you do you, boo-boo. On the very bottom here, there is going to be the PTS Enhanced Polymer Grip. Now, this is where it gets unique. This is not a standard enhanced polymer grip. This is instead specifically for gas blowbacks. And what is even more unique is that it has a little bit of a bevel outward once it protrudes far enough away from that lower receiver. So it actually grips the bottom part of the thumb and the top part of the index finger. It has a very smooth and soft grip action while still retaining some of that checkerboard texturing that's on the side here. It's odd how smooth and comfortable that grip is. It's not natural. It's not what I'm used to with a PTS Enhanced Polymer Grip. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I want so badly to get one for my real rifle as well as for all of my AEGs. But I know that this one specifically is going to be for gas blowbacks, so not a option, unfortunately, right now. On the bottom of that grip is going to be your super secret Heidi compartment space, if I can pull that out. I have the Magpul grip on mine, so it has a similar secret hidey hole compartment, and it's always joked about, even on real firearm forums, that's utilized for holding and hiding Skittles or batteries or a tool of some sorts if you have to be tactical. But Skittles, I personally prefer M&Ms, but again, with that chocolatey material, it can get warm inside of there with your hand gripping it. So tactically not a sound move on there. So the grip comes out, and then you have one single screw on the very bottom of the grip. I hold it up like you can actually see it, but I promise you there is only one large screw on the very bottom there, very similar to real rifles. And then you want to put the tool back in or your snack, and then that will lock into place. I'm confident that it will wear in to where you don't need a tool to get access to your tool, because that seems kind of redundant. Instead, what I have here is the Magpul one, and then I can utilize just my finger in order to pull that grip plate off. And inside is my hopup adjustment tool that I need for this guy specifically. So I always have the one that sticks with it, and then I have a backup in case I happen to lose this one, but because it always stays with the rifle, not an issue. Pretty sure I'm going to utilize this as an example in the future as well, so we're just going to keep that there. Since we were talking about the grip and the selector, it is only fair we talk about the trigger. Now, when it comes to the trigger action, I am going to try my best to replicate a very iconic scene and template from Garantham himself. So what we have here is on semi, making sure that there's no magazine in there because it's airsoft and it's not going to fire. So have the charging handle bolt actuated. We're going to put our finger there and we're going to ghost it together. So put your finger over mine, start to apply pressure, fairly spongy, takes up about 3 millimeters of overall travel. You hit a wall and then a very soft wall. I couldn't even tell you what the poundage is. Take the finger off, reactuate that bolt, and reapply pressure. So come down, a little spongy, hit the wall, a little bit more pressure. I mean, maybe 1/4 pound, 1/2 pound in order to break through that wall. Very, very easy. And then we're going to do it one more time. Again, just that little bit of spongy action as far as getting that trigger to whatever wall there is, and then it's easy. Easy and smooth. What we're going to do is we're going to feel that hammer reset. So back off on it. So that's where the hammer is reset. And then we have about 1 millimeter of take up from where the hammer was reset. So then we re-engage the wall and then it breaks. One more time. Charging handle back. Start to release pressure. It breaks. So the hammer is reset. But then we have to press downwards about the 1 mil. And that's where it breaks again. Very smooth, very buttery. Being that it is a lighter pressure, I have found in our shooting tests that it is a little bit easier to re-engage that wall at a faster rate. So it's not exactly how most airsofters nowadays are going to define spam shooting, but you can ride that wall pretty closely, which I'm a fan of, but I don't utilize it in the game, I promise you. We talked enough about the entire lower receiver. Moving back, we have the PTS Enhanced Polymer stock. I believe this is the compact variant, specifically is what they call it. 6-position stock, very similar to a Magpul style. A quick detach sling point on the left and right hand side, and then a sling lanyard loop on the very back there. A little bit of rubber on the back here that still retains that iconic square checkering. I overall really like the consistency of the checker pattern when it comes to the PTS product specifically. That consistency allows for a better overall aesthetic with a rifle build, in my personal opinion. So I even will go as far as getting the checkered rail covers specifically for M-LOK so I can retain some of that consistency up on the very front end here, because I am a fan of that. If you wanted to, you can take that stock all the way off, just press all the way down on the very back end of the button, and you could technically run it without the stock because it is a buffer tube, so there is a spring inside of there for the buffer spring for that bolt to ride backwards. So you technically could do it like this. Would I suggest it? Absolutely not. Can you change whatever stock you prefer onto this? Absolutely. But I am a huge fan of what is already coming with it, so I wouldn't suggest changing this stock out for a performance-based decision. However, if you prefer another brand just for aesthetics, then by all means go ahead. Now, we have gone over the entire rifle system. All that is left is looking at some of those internals. This is going to be a LM4 base, which means it is going to be a KWA gas blowback by design. Being that it is a gas blowback, traditionally how you would get access to those internals is by pushing in on the rear receiver pin. Try to do this as nicely as possible. Okay. There you go. So as long as you have a soft body for a Sharpie marker, then you should be all good to go. Just give it a slight crack over my knee. Pull back on the charging handle, and there is going to be the licensed Radian Raptor for gas blowbacks. And then we even have the traditional KWA bolt carrier group. From there, you have a standard LM4 internal hammer and sear and selector set. I mean, it looks just like that. For anyone that is familiar with KWA gas blowbacks LM4 specifically, you may look forward and realize that that's not a traditional LM4 hopup unit. What we typically see when we look down the hopup unit of an LM4 is a lot of individual teeth in a half moon or an eclipse moon style that is going to be around that hopup chamber. That was absolutely not present, and it was an absolute shocker effect when I first got this out of the box and I was looking over everything, pulled the charging handle back to see what was changed on that hopup unit, and I saw no teeth, and I thought, well, how am I going to adjust my BB backspin? And it took a little bit of digging, but I did figure it out. There is a small little wheel that you can get access to through the very inner part of the magwell. You can stick your finger up there and adjust it left to right, or you can crack it open like I have here, stick your finger in and move it. It is very similar in design to the ASG CZ P09 hopup unit adjustment system, which I'm a fan of. I think that makes sense for a pistol. I have not utilized this enough to identify if this is going to be a good, long-lasting hopup unit. My theory is yes. It is out of the way of any type of BB flight path. It is not going to be in the way of inserting the magazine. You don't need a special tool. You can remove the magazine, stick your finger up into the front of the magwell, turn it left and right, and based on my 600 shots that I utilized for a shooting test of this guy down at the Airsoft arena, in 600 shots, that BB flight path was so consistent with .28s. Now, to break it down even further, what would happen on most LM4s, and this is just an inherent design flaw, does not necessarily mean that a rifle itself is defective. It just means that you do need to maintain and clean those internal components more often than not. So, internally, my LM4 within the lower receiver looks exactly one-to-one with the Radian. What is different is, obviously, charging handle, bolt carrier group, slightly different just based on aesthetics. This one has more aggressive cuts. This one is a right-hand base of charging handle versus the Radian Raptor. And then real firearm charging handles will not drop into either of these. So you have to get Airsoft specific ones. Now that I went over those, on the LM4 specifically, what happens is as you have your magazine that sits up into the receiver. In fact, let me, you're gonna learn today. So you insert your magazine. It has BBs in it within theory. What happens is this bolt is going to ride forward from inside of that buffer tube. It's going to pick up a BB. Now, with these magazines specifically, the enhanced polymer magazines from PTS, these are a little bit wider and the actual feed lips can protrude out just a little bit, allowing for more than one BB, if not properly maintained, to be picked up by the bolt carrier group specifically, and then gets loaded up into the hopup unit. Now, hopup units inherently don't have enough space in order to fit two BBs, which means one of those BBs lines up perfectly behind that nozzle in the hopup unit. The other one gets jammed either on the left, right, maybe up top here, above where that BB sits, and gets crushed between the bolt carrier group and the hopup adjustment teeth. If that happens, that is going to be a failure on the components and needs to be addressed right then and there. That is not something that you can troubleshoot just by shooting through. You have to completely break down the entire assembly of the rifle system, and in some of my cases, it will pick up both BBs and try to load them simultaneously, so they're literally crushed together and against the teeth of the hopup unit, and I have to physically break it all apart, get my long screwdriver, go through the front of the muzzle, break all those BBs through the hopup unit going this direction, so pop those out, and then have to take a little bitty tool and clean all those small BB fragments out of my hopup unit. Not a fun time. Takes a lot of time in order to be very precise and clean absolutely everything. With these systems specifically, if any of those small BB shards get in the way, it is going to be a inhibitor to the gas blowback performance. And I do see that really often on my LM4 if I don't clean it and maintain it on a regular basis if it gets utilized. I shot this guy, again, for 500, 600 total consecutive rounds without cleaning it or maintaining it, and it did not have a single issue. More than once, I've had BBs catch in that hopup unit. I've had gas be ejected from magazines because those BB shards get in the way and can cause issues and just jettisons magazines. Did not have any issues with this, and I was trying to run this a little harder. That being said, this still is a gas blowback rifle and still will need to be maintained. However, based on what I see here physically, the parts and components that are physically built into this rifle system, you can be a little bit more lenient on your cleaning schedule and still be able to perform and have a fun time with a gas blowback rifle system. These are just my thoughts and my opinions and what I am observing as of right now. Obviously, based on longer term performance from players or from one of our staff members, if any of us decide to pick it up for ourselves. I've got a laundry list of stuff that I need to pick up before this, but this may end up in my collection. So, as of right now, short-term performance, phenomenal. 10 out of 10, no issues. Long-term performance, we still gotta see. We may readdress this later on in the future once we put some more time behind it. If we could get a dedicated Radian Model 1 specifically for long-term testing, that would be really cool. But again, I'm not sponsored or endorsed or paid by KWA or PTS to say all of these things, so it will come out of one of our checks. So as I put this back together, I do have some final notes of this product specifically. Number one is an issue that it does not come with a physical magazine inside of the box. There is on the warranty card, or the on the warranty card, there is a small little QR code that you can scan, and that is supposed to take you to KWA's website for the instruction manual. I followed that QR code and it did not work, so make sure that you Google KWA Radian Model 1 manual. In the first or second Google link will give you the direction to that manual. On the manual specifically, I don't know if the model that I clicked on was the older generation of Model 1, but it did feature one of the older school tooth style of hopup units. I did notice that in reading through, so just be aware of that. Follow my instruction on how to adjust your hopup unit if the model that you have is the current generation of Radian Model 1. Number two, the only sling mounting options are on the back here, on the stock itself. You don't have any options on the what is considered the sling plate, and you don't have any options along the receiver system. Now this can be thought of as a positive and a negative. Positive in the aspect to where you as the shooter can attach wherever you like or prefer to have your sling attachment points. You can attach those wherever you want yourself. You have full control there. You won't have any unused sling mounting systems unless you specifically choose not to go with the one they provide you, which means if you like a 1-point sling, you've got this option, or you go with the specific 1-point sling that you prefer. If you prefer a 2-point sling, you've got an option here, and then whichever attachment loop you prefer, you can grab that, throw that wherever you like on that full length of rail system, and you're good to go. On the negative side of things, they don't give you something directly out of the box in order to utilize whatever slings you have. I do believe that they did intend to not put sling mounting systems on here because this is going to be based off of a real rifle, aka a training base of platform, which means that based on the individual shooter of whoever's training it, probably is going to have their own sling mounting system. So I'm going to go with that they intentionally left the slings out. And then the final note that you absolutely positively have to make sure you are aware of is that the Ambi controls are extremely sensitive. And being the fact that they are a unique patent of Ambi controls, there are not a whole lot of receiver options available on the market that are going to closely resemble these. Which means someone like myself who is familiar with all the stuff that I have back behind me, all of that muscle memory is not applicable to what I have here in my hands right now with the Radian Model 1. What has happened is, in trying to hit that bolt release more than once, we have dropped my magazines. I made sure to utilize my magazines and not the one that comes in the box because this is still the display option. And I didn't want to replace the magazine, which is a good foresight on my end because we did drop my magazines more than once. And on one of those occasions, it was a detrimental failure where it broke the feed lips. And all that was the first time we were checking that Ambi bolt release or bolt lock. So we went to pull the bolt back and hit the magazine release in order to lock that bolt backwards, dropping the magazine at a distance of 3 feet, which luckily enough did not break the feed lips. The second occasion was trying very quickly to hit that Ambi bolt release, but because it is right underneath that dust cover there, I did accidentally apply force downwards towards that magazine release instead of backwards where that bolt release is, and did unintentionally drop my magazine, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back and busted my feed lips. Now, good on PTS for realizing that feed lips are going to break and break fairly often, so they modeled these guys specifically to be a quick and easy fix and replacement, something that you could do in the backseat of whatever your vehicle you're utilizing at an airsoft field. That being said, you do need to make sure you have those tools packed before you leave the house for the airsoft field. The other style of magazine is the 40-round Stannig style or standard style of magazine, which is going to be similar to the stamped steel construction of the real rifles. Anyway, these are not an easy feed lip replacement, and these you do need to actually sit down and take some time to fix and replace. So while these do generally get better performance as far as those BBs being more consistent as far as how they feed into the hopup chamber on the old LM4s, some of the cons is that it is harder to fix those feed lips. So it is a little bit of a balance act when it comes to the older school LM4. For this guy, for the Radian Model 1, I would wholeheartedly suggest picking up some of the enhanced polymer mags for this guy. And that is it. Pretty long-winded. I did it all in one take, so feeling pretty good. Anyway, that is all that we have as of right now. I put an answer at absolutely everything. Double checking my notes and I'm all good. So if you guys do have any further questions, put them down into the comments section below. I'll do my very best to answer any of those. And we're all done here. So you guys take care, stay safe, stay positive, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.